Hey, welcome back to day 17. I'm Michael Hoff with Digital Theologian, and today Jesus heals a blind man and the Pharisees get angry. I feel like I've been saying that a lot. Like, do the Pharisees really get angry? Yeah, they do. Here at the start of John chapter 9, Jesus and the disciples are most likely at the Feast of Tabernacles, and while there, they encounter a man who was born blind. And so that prompts the disciples to ask, Jesus, was this man born blind because of his sin or the sin of his parents? And Jesus responds with an emphatic no to that question. This man didn't sin, and his parents didn't sin. And then he goes on to talk about it being for God's glory that this man is healed. In the midst of that, there's a little bit of tension with the translation. And so one way of reading it makes it look like this man has been born blind so that God can get the glory. There is another way of reading the Greek that shows up in this passage. I don't expect you to take my word on a Greek translation. I am not a Greek expert, but I do lean on the word of folks like F.F. Bruce, who is a great scholar. And F.F. Bruce and Gary Burge both point to an alternative way of reading this passage that doesn't make it out so that God has caused someone to be born blind just for his glory. And they render the text like this. Neither this man nor his parents sinned, said Jesus, period. But so that the work of God might be displayed in his life, we must do the work of him who sent me while it is still day. In light of that translation of the text, F.F. Bruce said this. He said, God overruled the disaster of the child's blindness so that when the child grew to manhood, he might, by recovering his sight, see the glory of God in the face of Christ. So God didn't cause, according to F.F. Bruce. You don't have to read this passage in a way that God caused the blindness of the man, but instead that Jesus is saying that the work of God, the glory of God, is revealed in the healing of the man. No matter how you translate the Greek, the important thing to see here is one, that they encounter somebody who is born blind, and that Jesus affirms that it is the work of God to be done during the day to heal this man. And so for Jesus, healing is simply the normal work of God. That's important because later on, the Pharisees accuse Jesus of not being good because he does work on the Sabbath. So after this guy's healed, his own neighbors don't even recognize him. And this starts this whole debate cycle between the neighbors and the Pharisees, and everybody's trying to figure out who this guy is, how is he healed, who healed him, what's going on. And, I love in the middle of this, in verse 11, there's just a little gem that's tucked away in there, and we read over it so often, and we just forget about these things, and it just makes me chuckle. But the Pharisees are asking the man, and they're debating, they're trying to really to interview him, they're interrogating him, and in the midst of it, they say, where did this man Jesus go? And they're like, wait a second, hang on now. Jesus spit in the dirt, rubbed it in his eyes, and said, go wash off. So he's off trying to find the pool to wash his eyes out, and he's blind at this point and has mud and spit in his eye. And Jesus, we don't know that Jesus is hanging around. The Pharisees most likely don't have, they've just asked a blind man to tell them where Jesus was. That just cracks me up, right? Like, he's blind, mud in his eye, spit in his eye. And he says, look, where was he? Where was Jesus? Where did you see him go? And he's like, dude, I couldn't see. I didn't see where he went because I couldn't see. I was blind, but now I see. There are some scholars, such as Raymond Brown, that have suggested that what we see here in chapter 9, with this whole trial before the Pharisees and the bringing of the parents and them really denying any connection with their son and allowing him to answer, and the possibility that they would be forced out of the synagogues, this all being connected back to what's going on around 90 AD, as there are tensions between the early Christian community and the more established Jewish synagogues. That as these Christians are coming in, the Jews are feeling threatened because these people are asserting that Jesus is the Messiah, and there are many within the Jewish community who simply don't believe that Jesus was the Messiah, and they do not want to attach themselves to him. And so there is this break that happens around 90 AD, and some scholars do read that into this text. Now, I don't know that definitively that's what's going on. These tensions were likely present even during the time of Jesus. We've seen that the religious leaders constantly want to kill Jesus. And it doesn't matter whether you're looking at Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, they all say the same thing, that the religious leaders very early on in the ministry of Jesus have wanted to end his life. As today's reading comes to a close, we're in the middle of a trial that gets picked up tomorrow. As today, the parents have been called to the stand and they say, look, our son can speak for himself. We don't want any trouble. It's up to him. And tomorrow we get the son who was blind called to the witness stand to defend the claim that he's already made, that Jesus is a prophet. I pray that by God's grace you would continue to encounter the love and power, peace and grace of Jesus, no matter where you're at as you watch these videos. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. You have an amazing day. May God bless you.